What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. I am Mike Sparks. As the Riverhounds continue their preseason prep, I sat down with midfielder Brad Sample to get his perspective on how year two for a pro can be vastly different than year one, especially in a Bob Lilly coached team. After that, Josh and Steve stopped by to chat all about the latest team news, including the Columbus Crew results, Augie Williams signing, and more. We're also going to discuss the latest article on Substack all about the Riveters' potential division opponents, so be sure to go subscribe on Substack to get all of the latest there. One favor to ask: if you like the show, or even if you're just like the conversation around the Hounds and Riveters, please send this to a friend. The more we can grow the conversation, the better it's going to be for all of us fans. You can email thoughts and questions to mongols3@gmail.com. And with that, on with the show. Brad Sample, welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I gotta ask, we can't really tell on camera as much, but I saw you at practice this week. What happened to the lettuce, man? The mullet's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. It was a tough decision. I think for the longevity of my hair's health and everything, it needed to be cleaned up, to be trimmed. It's a long season though. I do have an idea that it should be back once it gets grown out a little bit.
Okay, all right. So we'll just keep an eye on it. Maybe we'll have a like a lettuce tracker over the course of the season, and we can rate it at different sizes and things like that. I like it.
Yeah,
How was
yeah.
your off season, man?
No, it was good. It was good. It was good to get to go back home to Chicago and be with my family for a while. Spent a couple weeks out in Maryland, but really just it was nice to be home and have a little bit of time to decompress and kind of just enjoy a little time off before getting back to work.
Yeah. Any kind of like standout thing that you did that'll kind of stick with you?
Um, I went out to DC with my girlfriend. She lives out in that area, so I went and got to see the Washington Monument and then the Lincoln Memorial. Yeah, the Lincoln Memorial. Yeah, the Lincoln
Yeah.
Memorial with the reflective pool. That was really cool. I'd never seen that before. I didn't realize how big the Lincoln is in there.
Yeah.
But that was really cool. I really enjoyed getting to go out there. And then I don't spend a lot of time like in downtown Chicago. I live out in the suburbs, but I went downtown a couple times and that was nice.
Nice. Good, good. Well, I want to pick your brain all about sort of the preseason and how things are heading into 2025. But first, I think it's important to sort of look back for a minute. I got to ask you, last time you and I talked, you had not scored your first goal yet, but I sort of mentioned you had a number of rifles that were right off the post, or just everyone was waiting for that worldie. Then you got your first goal, and it was this looping header against Rhode Island. A, was that intentional? And B, is that how you expected your first goal to play out?
Um, as surprising as people may be, yes, it was intentional. I was trying to shoot it. Did I think it would go in? I mean, maybe not, but it was an attempted. I was attempting to put it on goal. And to be completely honest, if you had told me before the year that would be how I'd score my one goal of the season, would be a looping header from a random spot in the box, I probably would have been like, yeah, sounds about right. In college, that's how I scored. I didn't score many goals, but that's how I scored a few of my goals. And back in the academy days, that's how I used to score a lot. I used to be pretty decent in the air and getting on the end of crosses. But yeah, it was intentional. Was I surprised it went in? Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. The first year, last year was your first year as a pro, and the first year for a pro can be an adjustment for any player. Are there any lessons that you learned last season that maybe you'll pass along to some of the new guys that are coming in as first year pros as you're heading into year two?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway that I had from all of that is that it's a long season. Um, you go from the college season, which is 3 months long. You're going really hard for 3 months, and then you're kind of that's it. Then you have a break for winter, and then you come back, and then you're still training and doing stuff in the spring, but it's not as it's intense in the physical portion of it, but that's it. Like it's not a grind.
Yeah.
This is a 10-month season roughly. Like it's a grind. Like some days you wake up and it's like, wow, like it's tough to keep like to know you've got to show up, you got to go do your job. But um, one of those things I would pass on to those new guys and everything is that we get to kick a ball around for a job. Like as much as maybe our bad days, like we still have bad days, but it's like we're very fortunate in the fact that we get to go and kick a ball around and call that a job. So that's kind of how I try to look at it myself, and then that's how I would try to remind those guys when they start to really get into the thick of it, when we're into June, July, August, and it's getting really hot, and you've been going for a while. You're kind of like, wow, I need that break. It's like we have plenty of time in that off season at the end of the year. You just dig deep. You keep pushing.
It's a great perspective. Um, yeah, I love it. You had previously mentioned the last time we talked the importance of someone like a Danny Rivera in the locker room. You said he kind of took you under his wing and showed you what it was like to be a pro. Rovey is obviously off to Rhode Island. So is there someone else that has kind of emerged early in the preseason that is like that new Rovey in the locker room for some of these new guys?
Um, yeah, don't tell him I said this, but Luke Biasi, he
Okay.
for sure is. He's that guy. He's the social guy. He's really easy to talk to, especially for the new guys that are coming into a new environment and things like that. He was really helpful last year, but I mean, yeah, he's that guy for sure now.
That's awesome. We talked to Luke last week, so he probably won't make the rounds on the show again for a while. So I won't. Your secret's safe with me. Don't worry.
Okay.
Um, So, almost a week of preseason practices so far. How are you and the guys feeling?
We're feeling good. It's a good mix of guys who are returning, who have been here before, new guys coming in, guys on trial, getting used to how Bob likes things done, and all that. But it really, guys are just, myself included, excited to be back to training in a group environment and with teammates and being around each other every day and things like that. Because preseason can be long, it can be tiring, but right now we're still in those stages of everyone's pretty excited to be here, and we're excited for having an opportunity to go kick some other people this weekend.
I was going to ask, how does your approach to preseason this year compare to last year? The kick some people this weekend makes me think you're taking it a little bit more lightly, which is good. But is there anything else that you're approaching it a little bit differently this year?
Um, in a way, yes. I'm a little less stressed coming in this year, just personally, just because I've been through it before. You come in as a rookie, especially, you never know what to expect. Being that I've done this a year now, coming in, not that I have all the answers because I definitely don't, but I just felt a little more comfortable coming in this year, and tried not to get too stressed about my days at training. If I do have a rough day training, I know that it's such a long season that that's not going to make or break my season. Things like that. um, and also last year, I got hurt about a week into preseason, so part of me, not part of me, my goal is to make it through the preseason and the season without having that come up as, not just that, but just in general, just avoiding something like that again, because that was really frustrating to have to come into a new environment and then almost immediately sit out for a while.
Oh, for sure. I can't even imagine mentally like what that would have to be like. You mentioned that sort of that's one of your goals is to try to stay healthy for as long as you can. Um, we talked about how you got one goal last year. Do you go into a season and have sort of personal goals in your mind, like statistically, or are you just like I'm going to go out and play and just try to do the best I can?
I definitely have goals in mind, that I like to write down going into the season. I try to make some individual goals as well as some team goals. And the team goal is obviously always going to be to win a trophy.
Yeah.
But from an individual standpoint, my main goal is I just want to be proud of the performances that I put out there. I want to be able to say that I did everything I could when I had my opportunities. And I do come up with some statistical goals that I have for myself, and I try to put a bar that maybe is too high. So that way it's like I don't want it to be too easy, where I don't feel accomplished, where it's like if I hit that goal, it's like, wow, okay, I really had a good year. If I'm under that goal, well, it's not the end of the world, but it's at least it's something that I'm aiming for and I keep in mind. But for me, I'm not a huge statistics guy personally. That's just not my game, in my opinion. Like I feel like I can affect games in different ways. Um, so really for me, it's mainly just that goal of being able to say, okay, I did what I could when I had my opportunities.
Yeah. What's the saying? Like aim for the stars, and worst case scenario, you'll land on the moon or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I dig it. The big news the team announced this past week: Augie Williams has joined the squad. In theory, you're going to be one of the guys feeding him the ball. I'm just curious, what is it like, bringing a new guy in, and then you're trying to establish a relationship with someone that it feels like you guys being in sync is going to be crucial to the success of the team. Do you sort of approach building that relationship a certain way? Does it just sort of happen naturally through practice? Like, how have you thought about that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think for the main part, it'll be through practice and just learning his tendencies, and seeing the types of runs he makes, where he likes the ball, where he wants the ball, things like that. Because I mean, he's going to score goals. That's what he does. And it's how can we best give him that opportunity and put him in those positions. So it's still really early on. So those are things that I think will come with being together. And I've already seen him start to talk to some of the guys, like when he makes a certain run and the ball doesn't come or things like that. And like not in a negative way at all, but just kind of talking to them and saying like, hey, this or this, whatever that may be. And so far, I don't know if I've been on his team for more than one or something like that. So I haven't had a ton of experience with him so far, but you can see that he's will like as an experienced player, he's still willing to learn and grow and help others come along with him, which for me as a younger player, I really appreciate someone like that, especially someone who is hopefully putting in a lot of goals and maybe making me look good with some passes.
Yeah, that's great. Um, I've been asking all the guys this preseason. Lots of changes coming in 2025. You guys are going to have a new turf, potential stadium expansion, new kits, Jägermeister Cup. The Riveters are going to be playing in Highmark. What are you personally most looking forward to this year?
Um, I For me, maybe it's a cop out answer, but I'm really excited to be back in front of the fans. I'd never played in front of an environment like that really before, and that was just so cool for me to be able to do that every game and know that those are our fans. For me, that's what I'm looking forward to the most, and something that you guys might be looking forward to is are seeing the uniforms. I haven't seen the new uniforms yet,
Okay.
so I'm really excited to see what we've got. I've been hearing good things from those who did see it, so I am excited to see what those are looking like as well.
I think it's awesome, and it's funny that like you guys as the players get excited about some of the same stuff that we get excited about. So like I'll talk to you guys and you're like, I haven't seen them yet, but like I can't wait. I'm really pumped about it. It's like, yeah, us too. That's fun.
Yeah.
You mentioned you guys are going to be going to kick some people this weekend in Columbus behind a closed doors match. Anything in particular that the team is hoping to focus on or achieve this weekend? I know it's early in the preseason.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to see where we're at, like from a team standpoint. Like it's early on, as you mentioned. We haven't had a lot of trainings together yet. A lot of new guys like coming into the mix, guys on trial, like just trying to see how we can gel, how can we put together a complete performance, and then we'll be able to have see where we're at in regards to a lot of different things, and then we can come back into training next week with maybe some different things in mind and like in what we're going to focus on and things like that. Things that maybe we didn't realize we needed to work on, or things that maybe we're a little bit ahead of. Um, and obviously, going to play crew first team, it's gonna be a challenge. It's not going to be easy. So also kind of probably trying to see can we mentally stay in it if things like no matter how the flow of the game is.
Yeah. Brad, listen, man, I always appreciate the time. Enjoy the trip to Columbus this weekend. Best of luck as you guys continue to prep for the 2025 season. And like I said, we'll start putting a tracker out there to see as the lettuce grows back, and we'll let you know once you reach full lettuce status again.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, Steve Mattias, Josh Brokaw, welcome, gentlemen. How are we feeling, Steve? What's good, man?
It's my birthday, so.
Oh, dude!
Happy birthday.
Happy
Thanks.
birthday!
That's not what I'm fishing for, but so just kind of relaxing, taking it easy today, playing some computer games with my sister. Got some donuts this morning. Went and treated myself to a massage on Friday. So, yeah.
I love that we chatted for 15 minutes off air and you did not mention it once. You waited for us to click record, just springing on us like we're some jerks.
I wanted your genuine reaction.
Remember your birthday. All right.
I mean, I totally was going to say happy birthday when you, you threw it to me. Like I knew, obviously.
Yeah. So, 41, like it's not a big birthday, whatever.
Yeah. Welcome to the old guys club.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you had a good birthday and that you're able to relax a little bit. That's great. Josh, what's new with you?
No, not much. Had a pretty relaxed weekend. I did watch what's it called? Just Weird Al's movie. Was like just Weird Al or Weird
with Daniel Radcliffe?
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe. Yeah. Watched that for the first time. I thought it was okay. It was a little long for the gag that it was playing. Like if no one's ever seen it, like let me give you a quick review of a movie that came out like 5 years ago or whatever. But yeah, it's like a fake biopic of Weird Al, and like 90% of it is just like funny made up stuff, like because his life is kind of boring. He's like, I didn't do drugs, I didn't like have like affairs or like go off be crazy as a famous person, so he just like made up a whole storyline where it would be funny to watch. And yeah, that was fun to watch, but it was a little bit long for what it was.
That's one where I've gotten in the habit of we've talked about this before, how I'm getting back into like physical media, but if I go to the library, I'll like roam the shelves like it's Blockbuster, and that is always one that jumps out at me where I'm like, shouldn't I, like, is this one that like other people are going to sit down and watch with me? But like, I don't know, now that you said that it's all fake, maybe I will. Maybe the fake stuff is like somewhat interesting.
That's why I want to see it, because it's like Weird Al parodying Weird Al's life.
Exactly. And like he's actually in the movie as like a different character. So nice. Weird Al's in it for some of the movie, and it's just it's funny. The gags are good, but it kind of reminded me of watching like an SNL movie where like some parts work, some parts don't. You're like, this is like, maybe it shouldn't have been a whole movie. Maybe it should have just been a sketch. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it has that vibe to it.
Yeah. Well, good. Welcome, gents. Guys, lots to talk about. Obviously, everyone just heard the sample interview. We're not really going to dive into that too much, just because we do have so much other news. But obviously, thanks to Brad for joining us. Love catching up with him. The big news, obviously, guys, the Hounds played at Columbus Crew just yesterday, Saturday. I was a little bit intrigued. So I was actually gone pretty much all day yesterday at sort of a planning meeting for scouts and stuff. Didn't get home till late. Completely forgot the game even happened. Woke up this morning first thing and start checking the news and didn't see any reference to the game like at all. I typically will even get an email like with like a press release of like, this is what happened. I had to go to the Hounds site to find the article that just described not even what happened, just like Bob's reaction to what happened. And I thought that was a little weird. Like you kind of announced that the team is playing Columbus. I know it was behind closed doors, but I don't know. Josh, did you find that strange at all?
I did, but at the same time, like going from the tone of what Bob said and just the vibe from, talking to people, it doesn't sound like we did great. The Hounds, I think, got beat pretty bad, which, but on the other hand, we don't know who they played, how many starters, how many, how that went. And we don't know what Columbus did. If Columbus is out there, they're well into their preseason right now. So maybe they had a whole bunch of starters playing, and that's what you would expect. So it is weird, but at the same time, if they're not supposed to say anything about the score, who played, or what happened, what announcement do they come out with? Because it was behind closed doors for a reason.
Yeah. Steve, thoughts on it?
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what Josh just said. I think the thing for me is it seems pretty much like it was a rough day based on Bob not giving anything specific about any players. Because I think behind closed doors is different than saying we played these players. So the only thing we don't know about is that or that we do know is that Eric Dick didn't play. We know that Junior didn't play, and we know that Osamano didn't play. And so I think there's also kind of that score, probably not great, but less important to me. I would rather know some more about, okay, we went in without two key defensive players and without our starting goalkeeper. And so how did the team look integrating a new person in between some of those positions and having some guys that don't or haven't played those positions against a really good team. And I think the other thing that for me just is a big question mark then is if we got blown out by 5 or more goals or whatever, right? Like did that happen when we had all of our projected starters in the first 30 to 45 minutes? Or was that we hung around and it was 1 or 2 at that point, and then they hung a bunch on us at that point? I would have liked to know just like a little bit more about what went well for the Hounds or what players Bob saw do something and we got nothing. So more disappointed than I expected to be.
Yeah. I will say, so 2 things on that. One, you mentioned Etu wasn't there. I went to practice on Monday and I made note over on the Substack. Well, no, we released a video that had the summary, but then there's actual video of the guys practicing over on Substack if you want to go check that out. Etu wasn't there. He did put on his socials this morning pictures from Pittsburgh International Airport. So he's back. Now, like when he shows up at practice, I don't know. It was interesting that Dick was given the day off, considering that Dick was there all of this week and like first week of preseason and all of that. Doesn't sound like there's anything that really is worth looking into there. I will say there are a ton of guys in camp, and the sense that I get is that Bob knows the guys that he knows, and he's really trying to figure out the guys that he doesn't know. And so if I had to guess, I'd say that the guys, like DG and Robbie and Sample probably didn't get as many minutes as a bunch of these new guys. And you're throwing a whole bunch of new guys who aren't familiar with each other at the Columbus Crew and trying to just like see how they respond. So what'll be interesting is to see, I know that they haven't released any official names of the guys that are in camp. Talking to Grubba this week, he tends to think that after like week 2 or 3, they're going to start releasing names of people, which I was like, you didn't do that last year. He was like, sure we did. And I was like, no, you didn't. So maybe we'll start to see some of these names in a few weeks. It'll likely be a whittled down list, but I just think in general, I was disappointed because I know when the preseason schedule came out, a lot of us were looking to see, okay, what's the competition level going to be like? And to be playing an MLS team is a big deal. We all kind of knew that playing an MLS team first meant like, don't put any stock in this at all. But for it to just kind of like, fade into the ether of like, let's just forget that this ever happened is not what you want from your, like, start with a college team and then don't talk about it. Like, we want to know what happens against the MLS teams. And it just kind of didn't. So.
Did we have Ben Martino, that name, before this?
Nope.
Because
he was apparently at the academy at some point.
Okay, because he was the other goalkeeper that was there for the game, and in the the kind of coverage of this, they said, let's see here, Jacob Randolph and trialist Ben Martino were minding the net. And I was like, that's the first time you've mentioned a trialist named Ben Martino, I think. Yes. So I don't know. Yeah. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, it would be nice if they just had release of the trialist names that they're wanting to release, just so that way we can actually know instead of just having them pop up in an article. I understand that in the past they've talked about how they want these trialists to be secret because they don't want people to like poach them or anything like that. But if you're going to release it in the press release, then I don't see why you couldn't just have that its own little release.
I have 2 thoughts on Ben Martino. Well, first of all, so once they actually released the name, which, as you said, the first time we heard the name was in the notes from this game, just did some really quick digging. He played for Huntsville City, which is Nashville's MLS Next Pro team. He had 30 appearances for them, only 3 clean sheets in 30 appearances, and a 61.9% save percentage, which when I saw that, I was like, that feels kind of low, but Randolph was 61.5 last year. So like Dick was 79.1, and we've already done a show about how sort of Dick's statistics were superior to like everybody in the USL last year. So, here you have a guy who might be comparable to Randolph. When I was at practice this week, there were only 3 keepers there. It was Dick, Randolph, and apparently it was Martino. So like the fact that they have now announced him as a trialist, it almost makes me feel like this is going to be our 3rd keeper. Like the name is now out there. He's been there all week, unless they're bringing in somebody else next week and like swapping him out, which I don't know if that's going to be the case. It'll be interesting to sort of just see how this all plays out with behind the scenes and how the team operates, I guess.
I mean, that wouldn't be the first time Bob has done that.
Well, that's true.
Finally figure out who somebody in camp is, especially a goalkeeper, and then the next week they're not there and somebody else is in that.
Yeah. So we'll see. That was the one name that we kind of learned over the course of this week. There were a couple of other nicknames that I heard at practice that I tried Googling and couldn't like match with anybody. So either Bob's using fake nicknames at practice or I'm just really bad at Googling. I don't know.
The reality is half those guys have the same name of somebody already on the team, and Bob just decides, I'm going to call you this.
Your name is now Ben. Congratulations. Yeah. Well, so unfortunately didn't learn a ton from this game. The next preseason match is going to be home against Duquesne on Saturday at 2 p.m. The fact that it is at home, it's supposed to be at Highmark. If the weather is bad, they said they will move it to Montour, but it will still be open to the public. So if you want to go watch it and see what's going on, we should get more news from that. Obviously, the team will be there taking pictures, and we'll probably get a full press release after that one as well. So if anyone goes, I'm actually debating now. I'm like, I don't know if I have anything going on Saturday. Maybe I'll go. If anybody goes or wants to go or wants to talk about it, let us know. And we'll sort of figure things out from there. Did I just invite everyone to go to the game with us? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just talking. Okay, guys, any other thoughts on just sort of Columbus or Duquesne or any of those games before we get into some other stuff?
No.
Okay. It's hard to really have any thoughts except for, it's cool that they actually got to play MLS side, and I hope they learned a lot like the press release seems to indicate they have.
Yes.
Sounds like they had a lot of opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nod, nod. Guys, the other big news, Augie Williams has signed for the club. So Augie has sort of a storied past playing in both MLS and the USL Championship, scoring lots of goals. I mentioned him a bit in the summary after going to practice on Monday. Steve, what's now that this has had some time to sort of sit, thoughts on this signing?
Not the forward I was hoping for. I think there's a lot of people that kind of had a sense that there was some efforts to try to bring Dikwa back, and it looks like that's not happening. So I was really hoping when I saw that it was a major signing that it was going to be Dikwa again. But I think if you're not able to bring somebody back through a transfer like that, finding a guy like Augie Williams that's a free agent, you're not going to find probably anybody that has as many upsides and has the potential to be as good as he has the potential to be. So I think I'm really thrilled about this. With any player that comes in with league experience, it really does come down to what's the personality fit between him and Bob. But from a talent perspective, I think this is an excellent signing. So I really hope he thrives and scores a bunch of goals. I'm excited.
Josh?
Yeah. So this is a situation where I feel like we've had bigger people signed before, like a Dane Kelly, but it always felt like we got them on the downswing of like their career, or they made a name for themselves here in Pittsburgh. Augie's not on a downswing. Like he did really good last year in Indy, and the year before that, the 2 years before that, he was playing for Charleston. He did fantastic. So it's a situation where you have a younger player, who's like in his prime right now. I wouldn't say he is, a very young player, because what is he, like
27? I think
7, yeah, somewhere in there. So this is like his prime years right now, as far as being a striker, a forward. So I do think this is probably one of the biggest signings we've had. it's hard for me to think of a bigger player that we've actually signed who is in their prime and going full steam right now. So this is a big deal. I do agree though, Steve, like there was kind of like this feeling that, oh, this is going to be maybe Dequa. Maybe that's going to happen. He didn't do so hot at Rhode Island last year, and we know he works in our system. So like maybe we can make it happen. And it just didn't happen, which is fine because I do think Augie's going to be a pretty big deal here. And I'm hoping to see more of the Augie that we saw at Charleston than we did at Indy. And I think Indy had issues anyway. Yeah. So, and it's not like he did bad. He scored like 10 goals for Indy last year. So he's a good player and he was a good player for them, but I expect him to do even better here than he did in Indy.
Yeah. I was thinking kind of the same thing. Like I expect him to have the opportunity to do much better because I think he'll get much better service from if we give the service that we gave last year with a guy that knows how to put the ball in the back of the net like he does. I can see him scoring a lot of goals this season. And so, I think it's great. I mean, you're talking about a guy that on an indie team that wasn't very good and couldn't beat teams that were strong defensively, and he still scored 10 goals. And so it kind of reminds me a bit of the Player Shield winning campaign for Dequa when a lot of his goals were goals that he was putting the team on his back and finding a way to score rather than the team really setting him up for success. Not that that didn't happen, but I think we were better from the wings with our passes last season and just didn't have a guy that could finish. And so if we keep doing that and we see him at his best, he's going to score a lot.
Yeah. Couple of thoughts. So as it relates to Augie Williams, I will say there's a lot of people outside of the organization that are really excited about this. And I think that my viewpoint is somewhat tainted because of the whole Dequa thing, which I'm going to talk about second here. But what I can say is there's nothing definitive to back this up. But based on how things have been phrased, based on wording from the past, the sense that I got, and I could be completely wrong, is that Dane Kelly was kind of put on the team, maybe not as sort of Bob's, not that Bob didn't want him, but it wasn't like Bob was trying to go and get Dane Kelly. And that might not be the case with Augie Williams. It feels like they directly identified him and said, we want him. And then Tuffy said, okay. And so that gives me more confidence that Augie will work in this system because it's somebody that we sought out rather than somebody that was added to the roster and trying to like shoehorn into what we already have going on.
Yeah. Bob had a quote. I was just pulling up. Yeah, he said that bringing a player like Augie to Pittsburgh is a major signing for our organization. It highlights the growth, ambition, and investment that Tuffy continues to infuse into our club, community, and Western PA soccer as a whole. So that quote made me think the same thing. Like it sounds like, he brought this to Tuffy and Tuffy, signed the check for it, which is kind of counterintuitive to not intuitive, but we've always kind of assumed or had the feeling that Bob was like more of a bargain hunter and like he would not want to sign bigger players. So the fact that it sounds like Bob did bring this player to Tuffy is interesting and something that I wouldn't have expected, which is really nice to see actually.
Yeah. And Mike, you talked a little bit about the Dane Kelly situation, but my sources in the past made it pretty clear to me that Dane Kelly was a Tuffy decision. And I don't think Bob's going to ever turn down a player of that caliber, but it sounded pretty substantially direct that it was Tuffy saw that he was available and went out and said, we want to bring him in, as opposed to it being driven by Bob. And I think that difference makes a huge impact. And I think as well, you talked a little bit about what you saw with him in practice. And in some of the practices that I saw with Kelly, the things that you described with Augie are very different than the things that I saw with Dane. And so that gives me a lot of hope as well, that here's a guy that is actually doing all the work that he needs to do in his first week of practice with the team to set himself and everyone else up for success, as opposed to just kind of, I think I'm the best player on the field and I'm going to act like that and not contribute to everybody else's success. So.
Listen, I think probably the past year to 2 years has been sort of a real watershed moment for not just the USL, but for the Hounds and for Bob. I think, we talked about Bob being a bargain hunter. It was very clear, according to sources, that there was a ton of money that was thrown at Dikwa, and there was a ton of money that was thrown at Mark Ibarra in a way that was I don't want to say overvaluing them, but absolutely the strategy was, we are going to make it impossible for them to say no. And that changes the game. You can't negotiate with something like that. And
and not even just impossible for them to say no, impossible for anybody else to give them an opportunity to say yes.
Right. And so I think when you're living in that world, I think this Augie signing is almost a concession by Bob to say, okay, like we've got to change the way that we play this a bit. And now we need to go after and try to make a splash to make something like this happen. Just like side note, it was interesting. I had a conversation there where I think Laura Ellen, we were talking, and she said, how much of this do you think is the players union and sort of helping sort of players get more money? And it sounds like the players union is very much helping at the bottom level to make sure that the bottom level are making more money.
Yeah.
But the feeling from within the organization is that that's not what's driving up these dollar amounts for these other players. It's these expansion clubs that are coming in and they're wanting to make a splash by overspending right off the bat. And you just can't compete with that. Like they're just going to buy the player one way or another. And it makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So that was all interesting. The whole Dikwa thing, just to sort of, if people are hearing this for the first time and going, Dikwa, what? I will say that we have been doing some digging in the off season. I have been asking players, I've been asking people at the front office, just like, hey, so there's this rumor going around about Dikwa, like what's happening? And everyone's response is the same. They're like, oh, we love Dikwa. Like apparently he spent a large chunk of the offseason training at Montour. Like he's still really close friends with families. He was literally in DG's wedding party. Like I think everybody would love to have Dikwa back. No one has said no. So like that there may have been conversations, but I think that this Augie Williams signing is probably the nail in that coffin of Dikwa is going to be in Rhode Island, which again, I think taints a lot of our people. If none of us were thinking Dikwa could come back and we got the news that Augie Williams was signing, we were like, this is insane. This is crazy. But I think some of us kind of got our hopes up just because knowing Dikwa personally and all of that, like there was that hope there. But that's kind of the backstory there for those of you if you're hearing Dikwa for the first time. And this is probably the last time.
I mean, do you think so? I was trying to like play this thought experiment out for myself because, like you said, a lot of it is just nostalgia for Dikwa and also just personally liking the guy. Yeah. Do you think on paper and just like we know is Augie a better signing than Dikwa would have been? I think there's the argument there because like really we have Dikwa having a good performance at Pittsburgh. But that's it. Like he didn't have a stellar year last year.
Steve,
I want to say no, but I think like you're making the exact argument that I think I have to make for myself that we know what Dikwa can do when he is in the right environment in Pittsburgh.
That's Golden Boot,
right? Yeah. But we know a lot more about Augie, and we see him being successful year after year after year in multiple organizations. An organization that's not as good as the Hounds, and an organization that the Hounds are pretty level on in most seasons with Charleston, right? And so you're talking about a guy that he's proven it for the past 3 seasons. I mean, he scored almost a goal every other game for the past 3 seasons. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to take the guy because I guess I have to take the guy that,
right. Yeah, you have a choice.
That's what we've got. Right. Yeah. But I think I'm comfortable taking the guy that has done it for 3 seasons straight. That's just a little bit behind what Dikwa's best season was, but hasn't matched that prior or after his Golden Boot season.
Yeah. I think for me, the question of, in hindsight, is the Augie Williams signing better than Dikwa? I still have nostalgia bias where I'm like, Dikwa had the golden boot season, went to Rhode Island, played in different system, didn't do as well. We know he fits in with the Hound system. Now you put, him with Jacqueline, like that, it starts playing with your mind of like, just imagine, but like, what is, there's a whole thing in like philosophy where like you always, if you're given two options and one isn't the one you want, you always think the other one would have ended up better, but you never actually know because it never is going to happen. So I think at this point, I'm very happy with the Augie Williams signing. I'm very happy to sort of see how this continues to play out, how him and Jacqueline start to work together. Because, I mean, again, Jacqueline came in and was just on fire. And so we almost discount the fact that we have both of them. And how is this going to work with now you're going to have Etsu potentially bombing up the other side? Like our attack could be scary insane next year, like legitimately scary insane. So I'm very happy. I think this is a good point to sort of put the Dikwa stuff to rest behind us for now, and just get on the Augie train and go from there. So, guys, in addition to signing Augie Williams, the Hounds did announce that they signed another defender, All-American Max Broughton. I guess that's how we'll pronounce it for now, out of WVU. What's interesting to me is, and I don't know if you guys care about this or if this is even a thing, but all of our signings thus far have been straight out of college, aside from Augie Williams. Do you care at all, considering the base that we were building from, Josh? Do you care?
I don't, but also, I guess, like, right out of college, like, Burton Jacqueline, it doesn't feel like a right out of our type of signing because he played here last year.
That's true. That's
so, like,
true.
It's not all. And and the fact that we retained a lot of our players from last year, I definitely feel like this year feels more impressive and as far as our signings, even though we have had a lot of college signings.
Yeah. Steve, do you care?
No, I don't. I think the big difference between this season and last season at this time was the Hounds were talking about how they had returned the most ever players last offseason. But so many of those guys were not starters the previous year. Whereas this year, we've got, two guys that weren't making the starting 11 regularly that we brought back. And we brought back the majority of our starters. And so I think that makes a big, big difference. And so we've got a little bit more flexibility. And I think, quite frankly, I'd rather bring in these guys for 2 years and see what they can do out of college when we've got a strong core than be bringing in the guys out of MLS Next Pro or League One as much, because we've seen those guys not necessarily be able to thrive in Bob's system. There's very few guys that we've brought in other than Alal that have, I think, really, really cemented a place after having experience down in the third division. So give the guys that are a little bit more moldable to Bob and see what we can do, because we know he can do that. Yeah. If half of them hit, we're in good shape.
And listen, I mentioned it in the summary from being at practice on Monday, but Charles All, the midfielder that we signed fresh out of college, looks really, really like stand out good at the first preseason practice. At one point, I actually turned to someone and I was like, "That's All, right?" And they were like, "Uh-huh." So like that is a very crowded midfield, and we've seen promising guys come in to there and sort of fade away. But that's definitely one I'll be keeping my eye on for sure.
Poor Jackson Welty is going to be made a defender.
Jeez. Oh, man. See, now I'm just picturing, like, if I talk to Walty this week, should I be like, "Are you going to be a defender?" I won't do that to him. Guys, the other thing I guess that was happening on Monday was, like, we're now using the hashtag Gritsburg. Is this a thing, Josh?
I mean, it's a Hounds thing, just like Houndtown was a thing. So take that for what you will. I don't mind it. I actually think Gritsburg is kind of cool. The only thing I don't like is it makes me think of Gritty. And so, like, I know that's not the connection. The connection is
the Philadelphia Flyers mascot, Gritty. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I think when I hear Gritsburg. I was like, wait, Gritty? Pittsburgh? That doesn't make any sense. But I forget the guy's name from ESPN, announcer guy or personality. He's the one that called Pittsburgh or the Riverhounds from Pittsburgh. They played the clip of it at the end of the little like
Gotcha.
sizzle reel thing that they did. Anyway, that guy, which I don't watch ESPN, so I don't know his name, but yeah, he was making talking to someone and he called us or said that we're from Pittsburgh and the Riverhounds. So that's where the association came from, and they kind of ran with it. So there is a reason why it's Pittsburgh. I get it. I think it is better than Houndtown was, so I'll take it.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't care one way or the other. Like, it's a hashtag for a season. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Well, it's our new hashtag forever, though. What if we start just using it?
I mean, I thought Unleashed was gonna stick around, and
the whole thing, like I don't know, sort of rubber stamping hashtags at a professional level feels like it's the opposite of what hashtags should be for, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people that do it. Like I don't think I ever used Houndtown because I was like, I'll just tag the Hounds. Like I don't know. Maybe that's why our social media numbers could potentially be higher. Maybe. Will I ever use Gritsburg? Probably not. Like I feel like oftentimes those are things that organically happen outside of the organization, not something the organization pushes. But who knows? Could be wrong. Give them, an A for effort, I guess.
I mean, all of them feel silly. Like even Unleash, which is what the Steel Army's been using since I can remember. I don't know if that by itself, if it was organically I know it organically came to being, but like right now, if we were to start using Unleash for the first time, people be like, Unleash, I guess. Well, whatever. It's silly.
It feels like most, I don't want to say bigger teams, but teams have been around for a really long time. I'm thinking primarily in Europe. They all have sort of a slogan that the fans kind of know. Like I think of Villa and everyone says up the Villa. Like that's like the thing. Do the Hounds have the equivalent of something like that? Is it Unleash the Hounds? Like if you're talking to somebody and like, I don't know. I don't know if there is a catchphrase like that is just sort of like ingrained in the culture of what we do that people would just recite. And I don't know if the goal is to have something like that. It might be neat at some point, but again, I feel like it has to be organic. And like Unleash feels like it's been around the longest. But if you're talking to somebody and you're like, Unleash the Hounds, or they can be like, Unleash the Hounds, but like that's not going to happen. So like, I don't know.
The closest like we have of that, at least in the Steel Army, that I've noticed is Hound 'em. Like Hound 'em is something that people will just say, like, "Yep, Hound 'em," like or that's Houndsy, which is a bad thing, not a good thing. But those are the only two I can think of, like organically saying in person to people, and not just a hashtag.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I guess one other bit of news as it relates shifting from, I guess, do you guys have anything else about the Hounds that you guys want to talk about before we talk about the Riveters for a few minutes?
Speaking of weird social media stuff, did you guys see the Valentine's Day promotion that the Hounds are doing? And they had ammo in a full suit.
Well, didn't they say that
online?
What didn't they say that like ammo will literally come to your door to deliver tickets? It was something like that.
It was an personalized video message from Ammo.
Oh,
which I mean, it's still pretty funny. I don't know.
It is funny. If he would actually deliver them to the door, I was really tempted to do it just to see if he'd drive an hour and a half to my house. I'm like, what's the limit of like somebody dressed up as Ammo driving to their house to deliver tickets?
Yeah, like you're gonna get the Ammo costume from like the first ever version of it. It's all tattered and matted.
Smoking a cigarette and like.
I don't know. I thought it was funny. I do like their social media presence right now with Ammo and what they're doing. It's definitely more fun and lighthearted than they've had in the past, and more of a presence. So I like to see that kind of stuff.
Listen, this is not the first time that we've talked about sort of the media presence using Ammo on this show in this preseason. Like they're clearly doing stuff that's a little bit different, that's a little bit fun, that is getting people talking, and that's a good thing. Good for them. I mean, that's what you want to see. So, yeah. Guys, as it relates to the Riveters, sort of two bits of news. So the Riveters announced yet another signing, Pitt forward Ava Boyd, another RDA alum, and from Pine Richland. So again, we talked a little bit just about, these women coming from different areas of the city, recently coming from different areas of the city. I am very interested to see what attendance is like at these Riveters games, because so many people are going to know somebody on this team personally and going to want to show up and support them. And I think that's just friggin' awesome. So really, really cool stuff. Speaking of the Riveters, we mentioned last week that, we have a Substack and we're writing articles over there. The latest article put out on Saturday was all about the Riveters and sort of the potential divisions and potential teams that they could play in. Now, obviously, we don't know what the division is yet. I think some of us are just kind of making the assumption that we'll be in the same division as Steel City because they're both in Pittsburgh, and from just a cost perspective, why wouldn't they be in the same city? But, I thought that there were a number of interesting proposals or ideas that were sort of thrown out in the article by Peter. And so one of the biggest things that sort of stuck with me that I had not considered beforehand was just, there's a number of different ways this can shake out. We could end up with some teams that have sort of USL affiliates. So you have like the Indies and the Louisvilles and the Detroits, and then even Lexington, although, the Hounds don't play Lexington. There are teams that have MLS affiliates. There are teams that have no other affiliates. So like when I say affiliates, I mean like both our men's and women's team could be playing them this year. Yeah. I guess my question to you guys is, well, first of all, do you have any sort of immediate reactions to the article? And then second of all, do you care if there is a men's and women's like pairing like that or not? Josh, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't care if there's a men's and women's pairing. I feel like this is going to be its own thing, and it's going to have its own, it's its own beast. So I could very much see a rivalry that we don't have between two clubs, forming there compared to us. Like maybe Indy is the one that they get, a lot of history with real fast, or like, knocking each other out and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that becomes like a big rivalry. Whereas when the Hounds play Indy, it doesn't quite feel like that. Yeah. I hope it does have a natural like vibe like that, where it has its own, organic start. But as far as like the actual division, I have no idea. I know that they're like, they had announced a team recently. So like we now know, I think that was that, what just got announced? I thought it was in Ohio.
Whatever was announced, I missed it.
Yeah.
So wait, what was announced? What happened?
I thought Erie got announced recently. I thought that was a more recent announcement that they're joining the league.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have an idea of what this could look like because I don't know enough about the league, and it's a little bit new for me, so I have no idea. I don't want to completely talk out of turn here.
No, that's fair. Steve, do you have any feelings or thoughts?
I don't think we know enough about what teams they could be against and how many outer division teams they might play. But I'm just like looking at the Hounds schedule. I think it would be fantastic if they can put some pressure on the league. I think they're started by then, but to do a doubleheader with Detroit on June 7th. Like, I think that's the type of thing that I want to see. Bring in Detroit's USLW team the same night that the championship men's team comes, and let's have a doubleheader and a big old Detroit-Pittsburgh rivalry party, right? Like, those are the types of things I want to see. But I don't know. Is it Detroit? Is it someone else? I don't know. But give me that stuff against whomever.
Yeah. I can tell you that last year when we were doing the now this was just last year. I'm already forgetting what we called sort of the show with fans from other teams. But anyway, we'll do them again this year. But when I was talking to our correspondent over in Detroit, he was like super excited that Pittsburgh was getting a W team because their fans are just like ripping and roaring for both the guys and women's teams. And he's like, to be able to have that rivalry with Pittsburgh, like go up another level on both the women's and men's side would be insane. So I think if there was one team that I could say, in addition to Steel City, because I think that is just going to happen and that is going to be huge. If there was one other team outside of Pittsburgh that I would love to see be in our division, it would be Detroit, because I think that has the potential to just, we already kind of hate Detroit. The fans kind of hate each other, and like just to add another team into the mix, I think would just like, I think that would be insane. So yeah. I don't know. Is there one team that you guys would be disappointed if the Riveters didn't play?
I mean, it has to be close. Like that's a big thing with this. Like I want more opportunities for drivable rivals. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing that's so hard about American leagues in general and where we play. It feels like we're a little bit on an island, and it's hard to get anywhere as far as away travel goes. So whoever's the closest, that's who I want.
It's fair. Yeah. Guys, I think that's the bulk of the news that came out this week. Obviously, as the season gets closer for both the Hounds and the Riveters, the sort of fire hose of news and signings and games, it's just going to expedite and get more and more and more. So anything else that you guys want to talk about here before we get out of this one?
Like you said, it's getting really close, and I got the scarves in the mail for the Steel Army.
Oh man!
Nice.
So I have all the components for the membership package now, and we're not going to ship them out though until we have the AGM, and then after we have the AGM, we'll start shipping stuff out. So yeah, it's happening.
When will you add the new one to the wall behind you?
It's already there.
Oh, is it?
It is right.
Oh, there it is.
Nice.
XV, which
I was wondering.
Blocking it.
Nice.
So already added to the wall. But yeah, it's becoming real.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this one. Thank you guys. Love getting together and chatting once a week. As we talked about, this might get more frequent. We shall see. Thanks to Brad Sample for stopping by. I do want to do some kind of lettuce tracker. Like, I don't know how, but we're going to have to figure this out. It could be a lot of fun. And he seems totally game for it too. Talking to him off air, I think he's looking for it. So now we kind of have to do something. So keep an eye out for that. As we mentioned, go check out the Substack. Peter is doing great work writing stuff over there. And as we start to release more and more content, we're considering putting some of that content over there for the sickos who, just want that stuff, as opposed to people who are really tuning in once a week to kind of hear shows like this that are just kind of like a recap of what's going on. So do go over to subscribe, go over to Substack and subscribe. There you go. And you'll get the latest stuff right to your inbox. You won't even have to hunt for it. You'll just get an email whenever we put something new out. Otherwise, like I said, we might start bringing you some more episodes each week. Starting this week, we might break up the interview with sort of this show just because of how much news. So do make sure that you subscribe wherever it is you're listening to this, so that you're getting all of sort of the content that's coming out. More news to come in terms of the strategy of how we're going to release all that. We're going to try to figure that out this week as well. Otherwise, I think that's it. Gentlemen, as always, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for listening and or watching, and we will be back with more Hounds and Riveters content very, very soon.
Later.
See ya.